Hello and welcome. It's wonderful that you could join me in this way. This is the first time I'm doing this open satsang on Wednesday evening, and I intend to continue to do this. I'm going to try it for at least 6 weeks to see if it is something realistic that I can maintain, considering I'm a mother of a child and a single mother, and lots of other life commitments to juggle. But I would really love to keep this going. So yeah, and the intention really is to spend this half an hour together in presence and stillness. I will guide us in some minutes of meditation and exploration, and then I'll give a short talk, and that's probably about all that we have time for. And I saw that several of you submitted some questions or themes that you'd like me to speak about. And obviously I won't be able to speak about all of those things, but I've had a look, and I'll see how I can kind of weave in as many responses to those things as is possible. Let's see. Okay, so just a few people just coming in. So yeah. All right. So if you just want to take some time to settle in to where you're sitting, get comfortable in whatever position suits you, that feels comfortable and nourishing for this body to be in. And we can close our eyes or lower the gaze. We can start by just taking a few deep breaths. And with each breath, we can bring more and more attention to what is presently appearing in our experience. Noticing any background sounds. Here I notice the sound of the wind, but where you are, it may be something different. And noticing how it feels to be sitting on this seat, wherever you're sitting. Noticing the contact with the seat, the back resting on the back of the chair or the sofa or wherever you are. Or perhaps you have your feet on the ground and you can feel the connection with the ground. Then we're just going to tune in to how we feel right now in the body, noticing the sensations just the way they are. any very strong, obvious sensations, or any more subtle waves of energy passing through. We just notice it all. And if there are thoughts, we notice them too. We don't give thought any more attention or meaning or value than any other physical sensation. It all has equal value and meaning. You may notice that there are some sensations or emotions or thoughts that perhaps you like better, you want more of. And perhaps there are waves of sensation or emotion or thought that you don't like or you think shouldn't be here, or you want less of or none of. You want to push them away. But just notice that wanting or pushing away. The idea of how it should be, how my experience should be. We just notice that thought, if there is that thought, and see it for what it is. It's simply a thought. It has no authority. It has no more importance or meaning than anything else. And as we are noticing the sensations or thoughts or emotions or whatever is here, there is the knowing of it all. That sees it, that knows whatever is here. the awareness of this experience. And this is your true nature, your true identity, not the one that thought says you are, not the story of me and my life. You are the one that knows, that sees, that embraces it all, just the way it is. So then we can again notice the sensation of sitting on this seat, the contact with the ground, this body in this moment is known, is seen, sitting here, taking some deeper breaths, really settling into being here now. And then when you're ready, we can open our eyes and come back to the screen. So the essence of this message, of the way I like to express this message, is really very paradoxical. And it doesn't make sense for the mind. Because on one hand, we are pointing to our true nature, who we really are beyond the thoughts, beyond this body, this human experience. And this recognition of who we are can provoke some beautiful experiences of expansion and awakening, recognition, openness, open our heart. There can be all kind of beautiful experiences with that recognition. And usually the mind wants to stay there because it likes it, right? And the other side of the paradox is that this human experience goes on. And in the human experience, there is time, there is space, there is the experiences for this human, it seems. And this human is an expression, in fact, of life itself, of who I really am, the other side of the paradox. But in the timeline of this human, there are all kinds of experiences, not necessarily the experiences of beauty and expansion and love and peace and all of these very beautiful experiences that we like. There is the whole range of experience, the ups and the downs and the challenges that we all have to go through in our human lives. And so this is the paradox, that somehow we have these moments of recognition or awakening where we realize I'm not just limited to this me here in this body. I am life itself. Wow. Right? We kind of step out of this small me. And often what happens is that we have this experience of recognition where we kind of step out of that. And it can be a sudden realization or sudden experience, or it can be a gradual seeing more and more of that. And it's unique and different for everybody. So there's no one way, right? But then inevitably the next human experience happens. And it can feel like we come crashing down to the ground. And it can almost be a bit disappointing, disillusioning. All our beautiful dreams about what it would be like to have this perfect spiritual experience or awakening is, the bubble is burst. But this isn't a bad thing. This is a very beautiful and real and alive thing, because these beautiful states, spiritual states, they're amazing, but they are temporary and they are not the whole picture. So then our life, the life of this human, becomes about embracing this human, falling in love with all the feelings, sensations, experiences, the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs of what it is to be this human. And it's unique for everybody. And everyone has their own individual journey. Of course, it's an individual journey going nowhere, because you are already life itself, playing at being this individual. But still, it is a wild journey anyway, right? So for the mind, this paradoxical journey, it can be very confusing, can even be frustrating. And some of the questions that some of you asked me to respond to a lot of them were about the mind. Because it seems like the mind is the problem. I don't really believe that the mind is the problem. In fact, when we are fighting with the mind, it seems to be the problem. When we are feeding the mind and believing that those thoughts actually mean something, then they seem to be a problem for me. But if we can see the nature of thought, if we can see that thought is a very willing servant, right? It's like a very eager puppy dog trying to help, trying to do its best. It has really such good intentions to help this body survive in the world. It has learnt all kind of programs, right? And it very eagerly repeats them, right? Because that's the program it's learnt. So it's doing its best, right? It's innocent. Oh, oh, sorry. Had some incense, went up my nose. Yeah, so it's just very innocent, and it's doing its best to help. And so if we can see it like that, right, that it is just a sweet, innocent child in a way, you know, and often the thoughts that replay again and again are quite childish thoughts because they are formed when we were actually children as a result of whatever experiences we went through as children. And so it's very natural that those thoughts will keep dealing with similar experiences in the way that it learnt to do so. But when we can see that this is the nature of thought, that it's not trying to hurt us, it's not trying to cause trouble, it is simply doing its best with the limited tools that it has in its toolbox. Right? It's like a computer. It's just kind of replaying what it's, the program. So seeing it like that, this is the end of the fight with thought. We also see that thought has amazing capabilities. It remembers so many things. It also forgets a lot, but it remembers and stores information and regurgitates it just at the right moment. It classifies and organizes information and experiences. It labels this and that. In fact, thought creates this whole play of separation, right? Which is amazing. It creates these separate labels as if you are separate from me, as if you are over there and I'm over here, as if there are walls and boundaries that separate us. And I say it's amazing because when we see it as the play of separation, and we don't take thought to be the enemy or the troublemaker, then we can see that this play of separation is a play where we can explore ourselves through these apparent labels of separation. So this, for example, the label of you and me, we use these labels right now even so that I can speak to you. But really, of course, I'm speaking to myself. So thought really can be honored as this wonderful servant, but at the same time, it needs to know its place. It is the servant and it is not the boss. And that's often, in a way, the trouble, right? That we believe that who I am is what thought says I am. So when thought says, I am me, and this is my story and my life, then we assume that that thought must be true because thought said it. In other words, we are believing that those thoughts are the boss, that they know it all, they know the truth. But this is just the program, right? This is just the program that we've been taught from since we were babies. And seeing that this is just thought, then we can play in this reality. So sometimes thought comes with negative thoughts. So someone asked me to speak about negative thoughts. And sometimes thought comes with positive thoughts. And these are all just thoughts. And it is, in fact, another thought that labels some thoughts negative and some thoughts positive. It is this one thought that has some kind of overview of it all, saying, well, this is negative for me. This is positive for me. But when we question this me, who is this me that labels these thoughts positive or negative? Who do these thoughts mean anything to or about? Then there is no positive or negative. It's all just thought. And it's just to see that thoughts are just playing their program, the program of me. Let me just see what else we had here about decision making. Again, this is actually still about thoughts. And I feel really, just to say one more thing about thoughts, is that, it's not about having some kind of special awakening experience necessarily. Freedom is really about the freedom with the thoughts. It's not about pushing thoughts away. It's about seeing their nature and seeing that I am free no matter what. So thoughts can think all they like, and I am free anyway. And this is actually the freedom for the thoughts, the freedom for the mind. When the mind doesn't mean anything about me, about who I am, then the mind itself can relax. It can be the wonderful servant that it's supposed to be, instead of trying to be the boss, which is a lot of effort. So when it comes to decision making, it's the same thing, really. When we are believing in our thoughts, and we are believing that my thoughts know the best choice, the best way, and we move from what we think is right, we tend to overlook some of the other signals that are going on. We tend to overlook the natural flow of energy that's already happening in a particular direction, because we think we know. We think we know what's best, or we're afraid of what we think will happen. And so when we see the nature of thought, then we can start to see that actually the thinking doesn't know. It doesn't have the answers. And then this opens us up to feeling and sensing and becoming more in alignment with this natural flow of life energy. And then there's never a decision. It's not about a decision I have to take. It is about noticing where life is already moving. And then it's just simply surrendering to that. Seeing that it's not up to me to make any decision. Because who am I? Who do I think I am? I am life itself, truly. And life is doing this human, doing this expression, doing it all. And it's out of my hands. What a relief. Hmm. So let's just end today with just a few moments of silence together. Just noticing what has been touched since we've been coming here together today. Just resting in that. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a pleasure to be with you all tonight, and I look forward to seeing you next week. You can use the same Zoom link to join next week, and if you would like to submit a question or a theme that you'd like me to speak about, you can also just email us. Okay, thank you so much. Lots of love. See you again. Bye.